What up, though? We back. We lit. Right now, we digging in on the Underground Railroad. As soon as this shit load up, we're just here. Okay, hit this shit. Yeah, shout out to Hawk School. A lot of this was inspired by Hawk School. All right, it says the Underground Railroad was a secret business or secret order. Lambert's modulate voice, his graceful gesticulations, and his careful chosen and accurately pronounced words, which he clothed his teeming ideas. He can be suggested nearly 40,000 slaves were made free by crossing them into Canada over Detroit and the St. Clair River between the years 1829 and 1862. When the last one was ferried over, in the last 20 years of that time, $120,000 was collected and expanded to bring the slaves from south to Canada. So what we see right here is that your family did not get trafficked for free. Like, don't be thinking that somebody took your grandma to the north out of the love of their heart and for the saving of their people. Everybody got paid. This was human trafficking. This was big business. When they got to Canada, they basically got a job to go settle the land in Canada. This was the North's way of getting those Indians off the land in the South and into the North to work those plantations. But let's keep going. We almost there with it. You know what I'm saying? I gotta say it to you like this. You spent it to bring the slaves from South to Canada by the way of Detroit. They escaped to Canada in all estimated numbers of 50,000 slaves. A few of these were not travelers on the Underground Railroad, but were a small minority. The larger number were brought from Florida and Louisiana and from the border states. They were never left unprotected in their journeys. That's a lie. And the hardships they underwent, their secure liberties were not only shared with them by their conductors and repeated times after time by the hundreds or so many who cheerfully assumed their artist duty. The Mackenzieites, they were called the Mackenzieites. The Mackenzieites are your, I'm trying to put it, if I could put it in the words, what's dog's name, man? Billy the Kid, and I cannot remember the other bandit's name, but I'm gonna get it for y'all. Okay, so the Mackenzieites, they were called, and the number were 60 or 70. They robbed and pillaged whatever they could with safety, and these people were the first Southern agents to the Underground Railroad system of Detroit. It was a long time, said Lambert, before we could make up our minds to make use of these scoundrels, but we at last concluded that an end justified the means. Indeed, we went further than that before when before we got through our work and held over the efforts of security and liberty justified any means to overcome the obstacles that intervened to defeat it. These men would, with the permission of the slave himself, steal him away from his owner, who he had a title to him to sell him. Like, you know how most people say this was like a white master. Now imagine this is some preacher from the north coming to some old rural country Indian, promising him his own land, his own house, his own stuff in the north, saying you don't have to work for him for them 7 years you signed up for it, my Indian. You don't have to sign up, my black European. You could be in the north getting your own bag, working in the plantation, having your own little piece of land. You just got to take this oath of secrecy, and you got to slide with me. You got to make this move with me. You down? Let's ride, bro. I'm gonna be back later on tonight, man. I'm gonna steal you, right? Right? You with it? I'm gonna steal you, right? I'm gonna take you to another plantation. I'm gonna steal you, right? I'm gonna steal you back, and I'm gonna take you to another plantation. and I'm gonna try to get you over to the north. But we got some more stuff we got to do whenever we get to Detroit. I'm gonna keep y'all lit, man. It get weird. Oh, it gets weird. Except for the second bondage, they would steal him again and deliver him to us over the line of the Ohio River. They got their profit out of the sale, although they had to commit 2 thefts to do it. There were no steam railway in those days. We traveled at night or in the daytime with pedal wagon. So how was it the Underground Railroad again? All right, that is what it is. We had at one time more than 60 10 pedal wagons with false bottoms large enough to hold 3 men traveling through the South. Our accusations with the my bad, our associations with the Mackenzieites was from the necessities of the case of short life. They were sure to be caught sooner or later. And at some or more daring robbery, they usually brought some of them to prison and dispersed the rest. We then began the organization of the more through. Uh, it says our association with the Mackenzieites was from the very necessity of a case of short life. They were sure to be caught sooner or later, and to last some of the more daring robberies, they usually brought some of them to prison and dispersing the rest. We then began the organization of a more thorough system, and we arranged passwords and grips and rituals. But we are always suspicious of the white man, and so those we admitted we put them through severe tests, and we had one ritual for them alone, and the chapter to the testing to the privilege of the rest of the order. They were not admitted. Handwriting was the ritual, the names of the degrees, the words, the grips, the descriptions, and the emblems of the lesson. It was impossible to give a full space to them here. The order of using them was composed of nearly 1 million free Negroes in the United States and Canada. On their literary merit, it can only be said that the ranks was the best of all the orders, and as the poetry and imagery so rich used, Mr. Ralph, who was a white member of the order, had made no exaggeration. The title of the order was the African American Mysteries, the Order of the Men of Oppression. The Order of the Men of Oppression. In the first chapters of the degrees for the captives, redeemed and chosen, a branch of the first degree was that of the confidence which he used on the Underground Road. It could be bestowed by any one of those in the above the degrees of the chosen. It was from the degree that the agents sent to the South were selected. The oath and the minister ran thus: I, AB, do most solemnly and religiously swear and un- unreservedly vow that I never will confer to the degrees of confidence of any person, black or white, male or female, unless I am sure they are trustworthy. And I violate this solemn covenant, may my personal interests and domestic peace be blasted, and I personally be denounced as a traitor. This was a mild oath compared to those called for the passing to the other degrees to complete the confidence ritual, however, which was the one actively used by the Underground Railroad managers. The word loop is password crossover, spoken thus: question, cross, answer, over. First lecture. Question: have you ever been on the railroad? And I have been a short distance. Question: where did you start from? The depot. Where did you stop? At a place called Safety. Have you a brother there? I think I know him. I know you now. You traveled on the road. The conversation was the test. I was taught to every fugitive, and the sign was pulling the knuckle over the right forefinger over the knuckle at the same finger, the left hand, and answer reserve finger as described. It was the interesting feature of the history to the members. Nearly 40,000 slaves used this test, and it was on the lips of every Quaker in America. the latter for this first and only time, foregoing the use of the endowed in the order to make the test more certain. The Grand Chapter Lodge had its room on Jefferson Avenue between Bates and Randolph, about where number 202 now is, when the application for the first degrees of captives were brought up for examination. He was detained without, while asked, with it was he sought deliverance, was the answer. How does he expect to get it? By his own efforts. Has he faith? He has hope. He has it clad in rough and ragged garments. Okay, he was clad in rough and ragged garments, so the nigga wasn't dressed like that. They gave you some raggedy clothes. His head was bowed, his eyes were blindfolded, and the iron chain was put around his neck. And when his examination was over, his eyes were unbound, and he was admitted to the fellowship of the degree as captive. He was passed to that of the Redeemer. The chains and the feathers were stricken off, although before that, uh, when his eyes were unbound and he was a captive, he found about him all the members of the lodge present, each of them with a whip in his hand, but to beat his ass. In this way, the organization maintained a typical character after passing to chosen. Then there were yet 5 degrees that the rulers and judges and princes and chevaliers of Ethiopia, or the chevaliers of Ethiopia, sterling black knights and the knights of the Saint Domingo, all masonry. It's a young 3 speeches, documents, and early little understood chapters of the black intelligence and history. They poise as much early point to inscription of literary Ethiopianism than the generally agreed upon by scholars of discourse. Morant's sermon Hall's charged also revealed the influence of early American mysticism over the development of Ethiopianist traditions. Prince Hall's initiation into Freemasonry in 1775 admitted him to the parallel universe which Hermeticism, Egyptophilia, and Kabbalism flourished alongside. It is not intertwined with the enlistment rationalism. By the time he invited John Morant to give the sermon in 1789, sermon to the African American Lodge Hall, he has spent 14 years winding his way through the fraternal networks and the dusty bookshelves of New England Freemasonry. So all these Freemason niggas locked together